Okay, so I was doing this overview. So God created the world, the purpose. He wants to do it with Tachtainim. To do that, you need Tachtainim. For Tachtainim to be, you need to conceal. Our work is from the bottom up to reveal through mitzvahs, through listening, to realign a machine that is unaware or somewhat concealed. First, more concealments, as we say in Bas Lagani, 7 generations of concealments. Avram comes and reverses the process and begins to bring light into the world. Moshe, 7 generations from Avram, v'shechanti b'seichel. After Yetzias Mitzrayim, which again is the same, it's like microcosm, macrocosm, the whole history. Darkness, light, darkness, light. You go into Mitzrayim, 210 years, difficult, come out. There's now Gilead Lakus. 202 sparks have been elevated in Mitzrayim, Erev Rav, out of the 288. Okay, then Matan Torah, of course, monumental, a taste of Mashiach like in Tanya Perek Lamed Vav, but only Lefisha. So the world has been changed, but now has been given new powers to change the material world. We can now actually turn matter into spirit. It comes a Beis HaMikdash, where we actually, Beis HaMikdash then is destroyed, another Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Each of these is stages in the whole picture. You know, when you look at the whole map, it's like a mosaic. As a matter of fact, the Arizal says, Mitzrayim is the Reish, the head of all Golos. Then come the 4 other. The Golos of, Yavan, Greece, Paras Hamadai, Bavel, and then Edom, which is the big Golos, the darkest one, where we don't even know the end of it. What does the Gemara say? There was a Ketz, and here we don't even know. But it's the harshest, but also the last sparks, as the sparks go further, the hardest sparks to get on the bottom of the pit, the bottom of the pot. So, take away the words of the Rebbe. Let's continue now. The Arizal comes, Pnimis HaTorah is starting to be revealed as a taste of the Geula, and also to help us fight the darkest moments. Baal Shem Tov is told, Yifutzu Manesecha Chutza. More and more, the Giluyim are starting to emerge. At some point, there has to be an end to the process. It's not an endless thing. Also, you can't argue, I just want to say this for the record, you can't just say, oh, 1 second, if they sin more, they extend the Golos. No, there's an end, because Ein Avera Machva Mitzvah, and an Avera does not erase what a Mitzvah did. A Mitzvah erases what an Avera did. Because darkness and is not the natural state. It's temporary. So Yisurim get rid of darkness. If we suffer, that's a tikkun. Mitzvahs are not erased. So mitzvahs are accumulating while the darkness is being diminished. That's just throwing that in as a detail. Okay, then comes a point, whatever that point would be, how do we know it? Well, let's take the Rambam, classic Rambam. There comes a point where the world reaches a higher consciousness through the refinement. And then there comes a state of what he says. That the Asik, the world's involvement is no longer just with materialism, it's a means to spirituality, a spiritual revolution. And war, famine, kina, sachrus, all these things eliminate. And that's right.
These are all distractions,
Yeah. Listen, this is we're not talking about Chis HaMesim, we're not talking miracles now, we're talking the natural process.
Why will this happen? This moment.
I'm not talking about that. 1 second. Let me finish. The world did change. All these thousands of years of hard work. I just said mitzvahs refine the world. That's a given. If you take that out of the picture, the whole thing is missing.
But how do you see the
billions of mitzvahs?
Results of that?
Okay, that's a good question. Hold on. Let me just finish my point. I'm getting the whole case here. So I haven't even used the Rebbe's talks yet. I said nothing from the Rebbe yet. I just said this is the classic Jewish faith. Okay. Now, I'm not talking now about the miraculous stage of Geula, Chis HaMesim and the new things. We're talking now this process. Okay. Now, the question is like this. This end process, what will happen at the end? Will it be a completely natural thing that our efforts literally create a critical mass and there's an awakening, like in other words, like Avram awoke a few thousand people or a few tens of thousands, and then Moshe awoke more than that, the critical mass of the world will awake? Or will you need anything from above? Will it be God that will respond in some way? Not miraculously, but as additional thing. So it's not really, no one spells that out. No one says exactly. In the Mittler Rebbe, he talks a little about the bottom up and from the top down. But for argument's sake, it really doesn't make that much difference. Because if God helping nudge it, or we're able to achieve it, so be it. Now, I would say, to answer your question, and then I'll get to the Rebbe, that you have to say that there are things that you see. For example, and I am using the Rebbe now to be honest, because I don't have any other source, that the fact that there's democracy, there's freedom, where once upon a time there's humanitarian aid, there's an attitude, a country that is institutionalized freedom and personal rights is a result of thousands of years of Avodah. No question about it. It's not a miracle, it's a result. The fact that technology suddenly accelerated from the Industrial Revolution and on, which is really essentially matter and spirit meeting. The fact that we have all these advancements of recognizing invisible forces and able to tap into them is all because the Gashmius Chumash Ha'elam was refined. And they could not find electricity and nuclear forces and quantum and subatomic particles 1,000 years ago because the Chaimer wouldn't let you in, basically, put it bluntly. So these are all not zgula. It's not like, you do a mitzvah and God sends you a computer. You're actually refining the world. Now, obviously the final frontier is personal. You could have God set up that the whole world is ready for all ruchnias. You have, let's say we create superconductors and there's no resistance from Elam Hazeh to ruchnias. There's still us. The final frontier and the unknown quotient or whatever, what do they call it? The unknown, the radical, what do they call it? The radical agent, the free radical. Yeah.
I thought it was Abby Hoff.
Okay. Well, there's an Abby Hoffman b'toich kol echad ve'echad. Is ultimately us and our choices, and that cannot be imposed upon. Now I bring the Rebbe into the picture. The Rebbe didn't say anything I said now is all before the Rebbe. It's been said, maybe not articulated in English, doesn't really matter. What the Rebbe really added was, number one, that the time is now. That's the most important thing of all. He, as only a Rebbe can do, said something that no one ever said in history. Not Adam, not Avram, not Moshe, not the Alter Rebbe. That the Berurim were finished. This 288, up till Tavshim Memches, we never heard from a Rebbe, or from any... No, up till Tavshim Memches. So the Rebbe. We never heard that everything finished. Before that we heard that everything finished except puts the Kneplach, or other expressions as such. The Rebbe stated that. I'm just saying that's the main chiddush in my view, the most radical statement the Rebbe ever made. It's actually much more radical than saying the Rebbe's Mashiach, to be honest. Because saying the Rebbe's Mashiach is, every generation has someone that's worthy. This is a statement that no one ever said, and no one could say. Now, I'm not shocked by this statement, because if the Rebbe said it in the year, the 1 year before 6,000 years ended, then no one would be surprised. And now he said it 200 years earlier. It's not, it's not crazy if you think about it. Now, how does the Rebbe know? That doesn't bother me. He knows anything. And he told us these signs. The fall of the Soviet Union, by the way, I just explained it to someone 2 days ago, is by the Rebbe was not just another empire fell, because thousands of empires fell. The Nazis fell. That was pretty big. By the Soviet Union was Edom. See, the Soviet Union was always known as being the last bastion of Edom. So the American side of Edom, America was founded. So by the Rebbe, Soviet Union was like the last powerful Edom as a superpower. That's no question in my mind. That's why Soviet Union is such a significant element. No, I can't say we're in Golos. But one second, I didn't finish. I didn't finish everything I've said here. So now the Rebbe said that
about the American side of Edom?
That the fact is the United States is a Chassidim Israel type of country.
But this is also Edom.
Yeah, but Edom does not lock the prison for Jews to not be able to get out. Right. Yeah, it's still Edom is not going to be destroyed. Edom will be transformed. That's the point. We're not talking about now. There's also Yishmael. That's also an equation. The Rebbe talks about that too, where Yishmael fits in. But let me just finish this point. So now here's the key thing: Purim Tov Shem Mem Zayin, which is interesting right before Tov Shem Mem Ches, and then Chav Ches Nisan Tov Shem Nun Aleph. The Rebbe says one thing that really throws the whole thing for a loop, which I think is the crux of it, and that's what I really. I'm just summing it up. The Rebbe says that if the hiskashrus was proper, the people would do their job, the final steps, and the Rebbe would do his job, and so to speak, bringing the gilui to the masses. In other words, that final makah b'patish. But the Rebbe says because it's not this kashrus, it goes over from hanasi to hakoil, which to me means the following: that had the Rebbe not said that, and then the Chav Ches Nissen just really repeats that. Yeah. So if the Rebbe had not said that, then it would have been like this: we're the soldiers. Do what I'm telling you to do. Do mivtzayim, teach, be the best you can be, and go on shlichus. The whole gamut. And you do your parts. I'm talking about like from Tafshin Yud Aleph, Dor Ashvi, and I'll do my part, and we'll all march together to the Geula. The critical mass will be affected. But you don't necessarily have to reach the critical mass. Reach every city in your place. Do what you can do. But when the Rebbe said that, it seems to me, it's clear, that there's something went over that has to go over to simple people like us. That was really a Rebbe type of work. Not miraculous, because we can't expect us to do miracles. We're not a Rebbes. But something in the so-called Einoid Mulvad Egileh Lakus that's more than just bring up a healthy family, a Torah, mitzvahs, and chassidus, and teach. What is that component? That I think is the crux of it. What is it that we have to do? So, in context of the whole thing, it seems to me very simple. In a way, very simple. That we have to be involved in the higher conscious element more than we thought we would have to be involved. Which means that it's not enough just to do the mitzvah and be aware that it's going to bring Mashiach. Then in some way, there have to be a few crazy people. That's why the Rebbe said 2, 3, or 10 that actually live somewhat like an Eid Noed Mulvade type of life, and that they are ready to do whatever it takes to bring that type of spiritual revolution to people. That's how I see it. Which means on a scale like a Facebook scale or a Google scale. That's how I've interpreted that. What I'm saying now is already a method, but it seems to me, what way can you and I, regular people, do something that's going to be more than just the regular work that we've been doing? It seems to me it has to be something global, some global initiative that is, in a sense, like almost brainwashes the mass into being better people, into saying it's possible. Similar to the 60s and others, gurus, that taught such a message and resonated for many. But here we're coming with Torah and the Rebbe's approach, and that would not that would do everything possible. That's just tut alz b'sekent, which was not an expression that the Rebbe used before that.
That means because we failed someplace.
No, it says the iskashus is weaker. It means, you know what it means? It means it needs more mamata lamayl than we thought it meant. Let's put it this way. This way it would have been like. Yeah. So the first thing is that we have to rile each other up to know that there's something like this. There is this thing. Let's call it this X factor that we don't know what it is. But we know it's one thing. It's something we have to do, and we know another thing. It's not the regular. It's something unique. So maybe this is my own. I think of it as a global effort. Being that technology is so easy today, and hafotz is so easy, it seems to me that it's in that world. If there was no technology, then you have to find something different. Maybe you have to find someone who davens all day under a talis. But today, it seems to me, because your futz ma'anesecha chutzah is the thing, and chassidus is given to us to spread, and that brings Mashiach. So it seems to me it has to be some in mass distribution of chassidus in a way that captures the attention of a tipping point, a critical mass.
I mean, that's a pirush in open your eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's not a pirush in the Geula is already here. Mashiach is here.
Okay, no. I'll tell you what. No. So let's go back to what the Rebbe said. It's finished.
Yeah.
So here's a very good point. And I was going to get there, but I'm glad you reminded me. That's what I said. This comes also from the Rebbe's explanation. You could be fighting a war for 1,000 years, and then you're told the war is over. But your psyche and your training is all to fight a war. So even if someone told you your Yetzer Hara doesn't have any more power over you, you won't even know it without some type of major work, because everything is geared up to fight a war. So there's two things Ra can be. You can have a Milchama between Teva and Ra, where there's actually two forces. Zeh le'umah zeh. Moshe, Bilam, Am Yisrael, Amalek, Bavel, Edom, and so on. Or it could be said, no, the other side has been vanquished. But there's plenty of carnage. There's plenty of collateral damage. And there's plenty of psychological attitude. I remember two sikhs, I said this by the workshop, I think, that always remained with me. Va'era Tovshin Mem, and another one I don't remember later in the Mems. The Rebbe said, what means Mashiach Baba has chadas? We talk about it all the time. So he said, because as much as you talk about it, it's talk. You don't really, it's not inside here. And the second thing he said was that anyone that lives in Golus can never really know what Geula is, because only if you lived the time of the Beis HaMikdash and you saw the Beis HaMikdash with your eyes destroyed can you know a contrast. The rest, everybody else, is born in the darkness, and in some way, darkness is the norm. So I think to myself, the Rebbe is a Gilui from a Lakus outside of the structure, and telling us the structure this job is finished, and your mind is still yesterday's mind, because nothing happened in Mem Chesed. I remember to my Yetzer Hara. I didn't weaken or Nun and so on. The Soviet Union fell, but so the Rebbe is saying you don't really have a force of resistance now. Now it's all in your mind, and it's more Heder Yediyah, ignorance, and just your own. You're trapped in your habits. And can I say that? I have to believe the Rebbe. He's saying that. There's no question he said it. So, but let's not underestimate the psychological power of someone, the bluff of the Yetzer Hara that makes you think that it's a power that more powerful than you think it is. Like what the Gemara says, that Tzaddikim will see the Yetzer Hara as a big mountain, and the Rishonim will see it as a little anthill. So a lot of it is psychological warfare, really. So with the Rebbe, I'm thinking now, every Farbring in the Rebbe spoke, what he was really saying was, as much as you resist, I'm telling you it's possible. And he was fighting our psychological block to Elokus. And that's what he says, that's what means finished, in my opinion. It's finished. But if we didn't have that thing that went over from Nasi Takoil, maybe the Rebbe would open our eyes for us. Mm-hmm. But since there is, it's shifted that we have to do something. So, I know like this. So, that's how I understand it. And I'm a skeptic like you are. Because I look B'Poel and I don't see. But on the other hand, we're sitting right now and talking. I have no doubt when I warm somebody else up, I get warmed up. And I say to myself, look, if both of us think it's possible, why does it take another few people to think it's possible? And let's just bluff ourselves. Like then I said to myself, that's what the Rebbe meant when he said, so why is your wife and children shuldik? Because you have sveikas. Because the Rebbe was not saying, be a hypocrite. He was saying that's the truth. So you have to, it's the Yetzer Hara that's bluffing you. That's the thing. What the Rebbe says, Alter Rebbe's line, that he said, when the Misnagdim came to him and said, look at those Chassidim, they're fakers. They daven all day. We know that they're not, that's not really them. So he said, Halavai should be fulfilled in them, the Mishnah, and Meruba Midah Tova. The Mishnah says that if a wealthy person behaves like a pauper, he'll end up being a pauper. So he said the opposite. So if they behave like they're tzaddikim, they're going to end up being tzaddikim. Why? Because that's really who you are. So sometimes you just simply, a guy came over to me afterwards, after the session. He wanted to speak to me privately, one of the shluchim, because I spoke very passionately about this. So he said to me, I know you. Are you holding by that? Because what you said was real. I said, I don't know if I'm holding by that, but I definitely believe that that's what the Rebbe said. We're both holding the same place. So what do you want? I have to hold exactly. I hold, that's why I'm saying it. That's my stage of the game, And even if I don't hold, that's why I shouldn't say what I heard. I heard this. So just because I don't hold, why would we compromise? Because I remember the Rebbe saying something very powerful. He said, we all have flaws, but don't make a philosophy of your flaws. I have flaws too, so I'm going to change the Rebbe's words and the concept of Yiddishkeit because I can't figure it out or I can't handle it. That's ridiculous. That's opposite of everything that I was. I was a chayzer. I heard the Rebbe's words. I had no doubt that I know what the Rebbe said. I'm never going to change that because I don't understand it or something, or it doesn't it doesn't fit. So honestly, I have really no question in my mind. What I just said is absolutely true. The challenge is, are there any of us that will come to the plate, will rise to the occasion? That's the sad part, because 21 years has not yet yielded one like this. So I feel my responsibility above all I feel is not to throw it at anyone else, but to say it at least. We say it, and I say it to enough people. I think something's going to click somewhere. You never know who's going to be there.
You're saying it, you're doing
Yeah, it's true. Because there's no question, let's be honest. Elokuz b'pshitus, eined mavadi. All we learn all day, is it reality or not reality? In other words, at the end of the day, will it be a reality? Now, my skeptical side, my Yetzer Hara, my Yetzer Habama side, says, what reality? Everyone's waking up in the morning, they're as greedy as they were yesterday. People are killing each other. They're able to kill each other. Sometimes, we all have our ugly side, what we're capable of. You say, what, where? On the other hand, you learn all this, and it becomes like a moment of truth. Is this real or not real? So I say to myself, absolutely real. And the problem is, we are just not attuned. So we learn it, and like it resonates. So it's going to come down to a few people who are going to just say, I'm going to live this way, not that way, and I'm going to do whatever I can. For me, it's not even that so much changing my whole thing. It's really, for me, it's action-oriented. If I got involved, let's say, if I was able to convince Mark Zuckerberg, let's do a spiritual Facebook, that would be, for me, I would do that 24/7. Do whatever it takes. We're reaching the critical mass. I wrote Torah Meaning. I'm talking personally now. I wrote Torah Meaning 5. I wish I would write 20 other books, and one of them would become a bestseller. I'm not saying for covet or money, and everyone would talk about it and say, we want more of this. We like this. And then let 100 other shluchim or Chabad guys write books. We can make them. It's a movement. Avraham Avinu was a movement. Moshe was a movement. We've become very defensive and we've become very Golos-minded. Even Chabad. And the Rebbe was this one man standing on the mountain with a flag, commander-in-chief. We can do it. And Chassidus gives us Asius. We have the Asius for sure we have. Because everyone here, I'm sure everyone at this table, Elokuz b'pshitus, even though you may not be able to live it, but it resonates to be more real than Elamas b'pshitus. Am I right? No, Eined Malvade definitely makes more sense to me. The problem I have is of living it. It's okay. Here it is in paper, and now what do I do? So that's my take on the whole thing. Right. You told me, and she. It's words of God, right? Something like that.
Told me, this is Mr. Cameron. She said, "This is not a book you read. This is a book you keep by your bed." And why did you publish it just for fun? That book.
Because publishers are part of the Golos mentality. They heard what the Rebbe said, they would. Because publishers are a bunch of... It's an old dinosaur machine. Because publisher does their promo, and that's it. That's their job. They did it then. They won't do it again. It's my job. Honestly, if I look at myself, if I was sitting here and we're doing an accounting of the Rebbe, was watching us and saying, what did you do? I would say what I didn't do was I should have written another 10 books. Yeah, but you do, and since you write one, it's easier the second one, and so on. If each of us looked in our heart and said, what didn't I do, what I could do, you have to look at your koiches, your contacts. Again, I'm not even talking now, did you conquer your Yetzer Hara every day? Adarabah, do as much as you can of that. I'm talking about on the chiyuv. That's what I said to the shluchim 3 things when I spoke to them. I said, number 1 is make believe the Rebbe is saying these sichos to you, one-on-one in Yechidus. Forget about the Farbrengen, the glow, everyone's there. You're the only one there, the Rebbe is speaking to you. So in other words, personalize this. And the Rebbe means he told you something, and every day you're going to be bothered. Why didn't you do what he told you? That's the first thing. Second thing, you must learn Chassidus. Because Chassidus puts you in that mindset, 100%. Without that, you're living on old memories. And the third thing, in your community, find those type of global type of people and talk to them about it. Talk to them, this is what it is, what would you do? You'll never know who you're going to talk to, and someone's going to... Those are the 3 things I suggested. I was going to say, and I also said it here Friday night somewhat, was to look at the Mivtzoyim and look at schools. What can we do to infuse every Mivtzah? Even school. Every day, create that type of consciousness in people that you come, like in the school. It needs thinking. So, I gave it a little thought. I didn't think it through all the way. But like, for example, children, interestingly, and I said this, were you there when I said Friday night? I remember the Rebbe saying, if you want an example of Erein Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, look at a child. Because what does the Eitz Chaim say? Erein Sof Mal Kol HaMetzias. When a child is consumed, it's Mal Kol HaMetzias. There's nothing else there. Adults, I have something in the back of my mind. You're always distracted. There's no 100% attention. So I think to myself, so maybe if we can cultivate the child's consciousness, ask a child, we do this in camp, an exercise. What would a world look like if nobody was at war? Yeah, right. It was, what would the world look like? Because I think we also, as adults, are jaded adults. We project our so-called doubts a little. And children, maybe Heshiv Levavos Albanim can teach us a lot about what would the world look like. Let's just imagine. Let's do a mind. What is it called? A mind exercise. Yeah, an intellectual exercise. What would the world look like? Yeah. What would the world look like if 7 and 8 people at this table now for today would behave what Chassidus says Mashiach is going to look like for one day? You know, I mean, a lot of the point I'm speaking is if you get people excited and thinking that the Rebbe is speaking to me, we're going to come up with plenty of ideas. There's not a question in my mind. And you put a lot of brains together, you get ideas. You know, I don't think I have to be the one that has every idea, and I don't have every idea. In days saying Shabbos, I have my kav. I do think sometimes to myself, I said a few shluchim, if the Rebbe came to move into your community for a week, would he be comfortable? You know? And some shluchim said, I don't think I'd want him coming here. So, you know, you think the Rebbe would come to your house for Shabbos. What would you do in your house differently, you know? I mean, I'm just giving whatever it is, anything that it would take. I have no doubt that if you keep planting these seeds, there's going to be a few pure people. And it may be kids. It may be new generation that don't have, you know, they're still idealistic. I may hear something that can change the world. That's how I see it. So I think we have no right to be silent. That's for sure. This has to be a subject that there's no chassid on earth that cannot talk about this. If you don't talk about it, then that is not unforgivable. You can say, I don't know exactly what to do, but to say what the Rebbe said and the compelling tone that he said it in, I think that's a crime. Because then, so what are you as a chassid saying if you're repeating what the Rebbe told us? And I'm just giving aces. So someone say to you, what does it mean? What can I do? The Rebbe says, so I'll give some aces here. We recorded it, so this maybe we can publicize. This to me is absolutely. Listen, Shailas Chacham Chachid Tshuva. For me, I cry when I see hours of these videos where the Rebbe is sitting and speaking, because I think to myself, forget about the words he said. You know, the patience to. It's not about repeating. He never repeated himself, but repeated the compelling, and again and again. I mean, I think to myself, the Rebbe became Rebbe. He's 49 years old in 1950. He's not a young man. Means even B'derech HaTeva, he had his ideas developed. Not 20 years old. He's 49. You know, I'm saying it's. I don't say in a grub away, but the Rebbe Das Tachlis is 49 years old. You know, and who was he dealing with? A group of Russian immigrants who don't speak English, who are barely trying to make ends meet, Holocaust survivors, America that is as cold and dark as it gets, 1950, you know, from point of view of Chassidus, trying to replant the Chassidish spirit here, and who's he talking to? You know? And he knew it would not take a year or 2 years, no way. It took 7-8 years just to get people to realize that the Rebbe is more than just another Chassidish Rebbe in a corner is going to talk, you know, have a tish on Shabbos. And then started to shlichus, conquering the world. And then a few guys realized this is for real. They actually go here and there. And no one, in the 60s, no one knew how serious the Rebbe was. And then suddenly more and more and more. And then suddenly you see, 1 second, we got here a global leader. He has a real big vision here. It's a little more than just, even more than all the other Rebbes. And then you realize, of course, the other Rebbes didn't have all the opportunities because they were living under the gun. But then you realize, 1 second, I am Beis HaMachvav, that was meant for our time. That wasn't just, you know, I mean, and and he really didn't have someone that was on the same league. You know, Rabbi Chadikov, for example, the Rebbe's chief of staff, was definitely dedicated. And I don't know how much of the vision of the Rebbe he had, or he did it. I mean, he was a smart man. But there's no question the Rebbe had to train a lot of people. And I remember I came on board. What do I mean I came on board? You know, I came in the 60s. I was a kid. In the 70s, I started hearing. And then it ignited, and I realized this is a revolution, 100%. And I'm in my way. And every shliach, whoever was ignited, everyone in their way. A lot of people, I can tell you, Bachrim, friends of mine, every Yom Kippur by the bracha, when the Rebbe would usually cry, Birchas Habanim, changed people's lives. People made decisions right there. Because you saw, the Rebbe speaking.
They were characterizing the people who came in from the 60s to the Babbage.
Right.
As you said earlier, the spirit of revolution is sort of in the air.
Right, 100%.
It was that revolution was turning sour, and this...
Exactly. And you have here the Sikh Yutas Kislev Tafshin Chav Ches. It's 67. Basically the summer of love that they call in that world. It was also, this summer was the summer of 6-day war. By the Rebbe, that was Geula. It was big time. You talk about Shefer Gadol, you got to read those Sikhs, 67, 68, amazing, that summer of 67, and all the way Yutas Kislev, I was just reading Yutas Kislev Tafshin Chav Ches. You could hear it on tape. Unbelievable Sikhs. Amazing. Like, the Rebbe is laying out, he speaks about World War I and World War II and where we are today. He's sweeping, like a picture. So my point is that it's clear to me that, I honestly, I've said what I said here many times, but I've never said it so compelling because I'm starting to count the years. 20 years, 21 years. So what are we going to do here? Another 20 years? God forbid. This is not acceptable. 20 years from now, I'm going to be 75. I don't know what's going to be there. I can't wait for that. That's not happening, from my point of view. And then the years roll on. So I think, and there's 200 years from the Alter Rebbe's Yortzeit, I am Beis. I think a lot of this, because I'm learning this, there's no question. This brings out your mindset. I don't care how strong our Yetzer Hara is, or how strong the perception of our Yetzer Hara is. That's what it comes down to. It's the perception of a powerful Yetzer Hara as opposed to a really powerful one. And when you're fighting a war with the Yetzer Hara for 50 years, it's very hard to suddenly say, hey, he's not there anymore. Because you're trained for defense, you're not trained for offense. Let's put it this way. We're trained to at best, to deal with this. And I absolutely believe this, by the way, because all real leaders will never take someone saying to you, it's not possible. There's no such thing as not possible. So, but you say it's not possible. So it means it's your perception over my adamance. And the Rebbe, that was there. Tag good v'zayin good. It is possible. And what happens when something didn't work out the way? So the skeptic will say, you see, it didn't work out. And the Rebbe will say, it didn't work out then. It's still possible. A second later. You will never let failure dictate the future.
They digested, two guys have digested the management principles of Steve Jobs. And that's one of them. And his people who lived with him at Apple said that he never let us believe that impossibility was impossible.
Right. But by the way, that's what's even sadder to me. The Rebbe's words and ideas in this context, the only ones that are this way today are Silicon Valley and the techies and people who took LSD, basically, including Steve Jobs. By the way, I read an article that were not for drugs, computer revolution would never have taken hold. Because it was these guys that thought things out of the box. I'm not, God forbid, I'm not advocating that, obviously. But I mean to say, it has to come from a different way of thinking. There's no question. You can't, Einstein said it, you can't change a structure from within a structure. Jews are in a structure, Goyim are in a structure, and until the Rebbe was out of the structure, absolutely, and that's how he can speak this way. You look at what we're learning here in Ayin Beis. There's no way this Rebbe is living in a different reality. He's talking to Das Eli and Das Tach. I mean, he's like talking. It's a completely different reality. For me, the Pella is how he can come to our reality and tolerate us and deal with a bunch of people who, But that's, I guess, a Rebbe is because the Rebbe is not Mugbal in the Bligvul. He doesn't have to stay in Bligvul either. So, and I mean, what I said, by the way, it's not even that radical. Anything I said, I just really learned Pshat and trying to apply it personally without applying my own, the distortions. Purim Hamzayin for sure, 100%. Eliezer, you like what we just talked about here. It's heavy duty stuff.
What about you said about the Shmuel? What about everything that we see now?
You see, one second. Let me say. Since you're a Chorif Maksha, there's two things. I will answer the question. But if you're asking a question in order to weaken what I said, then I have a problem with it.
Bring out more from you.
No, I will say, but I'm saying, but I just wanted to see, because to me that's a bit. No, I'm not saying that. I have no problem with any question. The problem when I have a question is when someone's question has come to justify and undermine the whole effort and saying, "Oh, okay, very nice theory, but but." I'm not saying you. I'm saying that also for the record, because that's what happens. A lot of the questions, I have also questions, but my questions, I'm not going to compromise the Rebbe's message because I have questions. That's ridiculous. It's not fair to do that.
You said they already spoke about Yishmael.
So Yishmael is less spoken openly, but in Tzedlach, and I researched this, there's a lot about it, more than you think, because the Rabbeim clearly knew. It says the Mittler Rebbe writes. I did a lot of research after September 11th, because September 11th suddenly thrust Yishmael into the limelight in the West. I mean, America at least. I mean, Israel has been dealing with it forever, and I started researching. I found. I mean, I can give you a brief of what I found about it. Amazing stuff. I've written it all. It's all written. It's all on my website. I've written this. This is where the second book I was going to write I've written an outline for a second book. I still can't get a publisher to publish it. It's not just about Yishmael. It's about the whole picture that I spoke about, but also Yishmael plays a big role. So the Mittler Rebbe, there's a lot. I could cite a lot of sources, but I'll just start with the Mittler Rebbe. Mittler Rebbe says, because Bechlal, the picture of the Mekubalim and the Rebbeim always knew, and you could see it in Torah Shalom. You could see they always knew that the beer was like this. Mitzrayim is the Reish Kesser of Klippa, and then come the four. We said it was the four. The order: Bavel, Paras Hamada, Yavan, and Edom. But all that's Edom is West, Christian Rome, and that includes the Soviet Union and that whole thing. Fine. And so when the Soviet Union falls, that's Edom falling. As a matter of fact, Edom is what's Edom? Remi is Magdiel. Esav's son is Magdiel Zuremi. Rashi says, and the Vayishlach. Rome means Magdiel. It's one of the grandchildren of Esav. So Esav is Edom. That's Edom. But then there's Yishmael.
Amalek is also part of Edom, right? That's in Germany.
Yeah, sometimes, there's a little intermarriage between Ishmael and Esav. I'll tell you about that in a second. Maybe we're going to learn Nine Bays. Okay, fine. This is part of it all. So listen to this. It's fascinating stuff. So all the Gedolim and Mukabam that lived in Sfard, in Spain, under Yishmael, they say the fourth Golus is not Edom. They say it's Yishmael. So the Mittler Rebbe writes that it's the four Golus, and the last beer is beer Edom and beer Yishmael. He says it clearly. And I found it in many places. They speak about it there's no headline. But when you read the Mamarim, you start seeing that there's Edom and Yishmael. Then interestingly, in Tovshin Tes, there's a Maimer Kol Deidi, a whole Hemshech Pesach, where the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, it's based on a Maimer from the Rebbe Rashab, goes a whole discussion, what is Bir Edom, what is Bir Yishmael, Netzach and Hoid. And what's the Kedusha to counter these two klippas? Netzach is very much what it says in Bas Legani, Midas and Netzachen, that you just have to have persistence. Even if you don't have emotional feeling for it, but like you go to war, victory, the sense of overcoming. And Hoid is a sense of just acknowledging. Because Netzach and Hoid are not like Chesed and Gvur, they're more for simple folk. Netzach and Hoid you can expect even from someone who doesn't have worked through an Avodah. Because you can expect someone, you're a soldier, you go to battle. Like a shliach goes to war. Anyway, that's one thing. The next thing is like this. The Rabbi Greenglass, Olav Shalom, from Montreal, wrote to the Rebbe, and this looks like to me from the Rebbe's handwriting, it's like 1981. And he writes to the Rebbe that he found the Maimer from the Rebbe Marash that says that Avram prayed for Yishmael, Lu Yichya Yishmael Lefanov. Meaning that Avram wanted Yishmael he was his oldest son. So he was praying on his behalf. That he should be his heir. Then he adds, the Rebbe Marash, these words. Va'af sheyod Avram, ma sheyishmael yaseh b'achris hayamim. Even though he knew what Yishmael would do at the end of days, he still prayed for him. So he asked the Rebbe, what does this mean? Yishmael doing at the end of days. And this is in 81. This is before 9/11. And the Rebbe said, and he writes to the Rebbe, does it mean maybe the Zohar Seif Parsha Va'era? And the Rebbe adds, V'rei Gam Zohar Seif Parsha Balak, and Piyut Yisrael Nesha, V'oid. So the Rebbe writes out a whole bunch of sources, and V'oid. So I realized that V'oid, I know V'oid means there's a lot to be said about this. So I looked, what does it say in Zohar Seif Parsha Va'era and Balak? So the Rebbe writing himself. Seif Parsha Va'era, it says like this, that the Sar of Yishmael comes to God, and says, just like Yitzchak was gemalt, so was Yishmael. So why doesn't he get reward? I want reward for my whatever, the angel. So Hashem says, you're right, okay. But since he was gemalt not at age 8 days, but at 13, I'll give him reward, but a certain distorted reward. And what's that word? I'll give him control over Eretz Yisrael for a certain period of years, but as long as it's still a midbar. A control over land that remains wilderness. That's what it says in Zohar. There's no denying it. I mean, it's clear what happened. And then when the 300 years, or whatever the years he says passed, it says amount, I think it says, maybe it doesn't say, passed, then there'll be a war between Yishmael and Edom, between West and Yishmael, and both sides there will be casualties, and then it will be V'yoram Keren Amei, and the Jews will rise and Mashiach will come. That's what he says in Zohar. You could say it's like the Yalkut Shmeini, where the Kuwait, You could say it's the battles right now. This 9/11. It's a war against the West. It's a war against, what do they call it? They call it the Crusaders. They call it the Romans. They call the West the Romans. And the West, they call it the Christians.
Except for Daniel, he's saying these things.
Yeah. Well, look, we're there, so...
Really, you take the number 380. He said that from Edom, then Yishmael will come. They will like to take over the whole entire world.
Because the four Goliaths is what he's talking about, the Nebuchadnezzar's dream. There's the bronze, the gold, the copper, blah, blah. So there's the interpretation is Edom, all the four Goliaths, and all the Sradish Geonim, like Ibn Ezra, and everyone that lived in Spain, they tied the fourth one as being Yishmael. It's because they're different Goliaths. The bottom line is, let me just say one thing. What does it say in the Yisrael Nosha? And the third day when was 9/11 was Monday morning, right? Right, it was Tuesday morning, Gimel Slichas. Yisrael Nosha is a Slicha from the day before, the second day of Slichas. And it says there, the Rebbe quotes it, it says, Chila Edem v'chesnei, right?
Kali Seir v'chesnei.
Yeah, right. Kali
Seir v'chesnei.
Kal Seir v'chesnei, which means may Seir, which is Esav, Edem, be erased, and chesnei, and his father-in-law, which is Yishmael. So it's hidden, but the Rebbe writes this in 1981. It's a day before 9/11. That would be 20 years later. Or 10 years later. Hold on a sec. 20 years later. Now, what's Seir v'chesnei? Why is he suddenly saying him and his father-in-law? So I'll tell you one final thing. So I was doing research that Barbanel is another one. Because Barbanel lived in Spain, so he talks a lot about this. So Barbanel says yeah, but this isn't his Pirush on Daniel. Do you know what he says? You got to hear this. It's great stuff. He says that all the problems that we have is because of a chasna, one ill-fated wedding. Because of what? A wedding. Listen, you'll hear. An ill-fated wedding. Esav, when he heard that Yitzchak and Rivka said to Yaakov, go get the girl from a woman from there, so he went, and that's when he found the daughter of Yishmael. What's her name? They changes her name. Machlas, and before she's Basmas and Machlas, right? She's the same person, different names. She goes and finds Basmas. And it says, the Medrash says, the Barbanel brings this. Comes to the day of the wedding, so Yishmael, Esav says to his prospective future father-in-law, listen, I have a plan. Why don't you, Yishmael, kill your brother Yitzchak? I'll kill my brother Yaakov, and we'll be left all the wealth alone, and we'll split it, because there's a lot of wealth. So Yishmael says to Esav, Haloi Kain anochi? You think I'm like Kain? I'm going to kill my brother? And it says, the Medrash says, Yishmael was a Talmid Chacham just like Esav was. And he knew that if I kill my brother, Yitzchak, which is Esav's father, he'll be the mitzvah of Goel Adam to revenge his death and kill me. The same logic, he'll kill me and he'll be left with the wealth alone. So Yishmael was not ready to go into such a blood pact. That's what it says in the Medrash. So Esav left the Kala alone, and he didn't marry her. Then that's what later he comes back after Yishmael dies and he takes her. That's why she's called. That's what the Medrash says. And the Barbanel says this all the problems. If not, we would have had Esav on one end and Yishmael another. But then they joined. So this intermarriage created all kinds of things to the genetic pool, basically. And he says that's a big part of the Tzaras of Golos. Anyway, interesting, huh? What? What? Magdil, I don't know. Sure. This is a Barbanel. So there's a lot more to be said on this.
And what does it say? Balak and
Yeah, of course. That was a very good plan. Why does he have to kill two people? And he'll kill you. So he wasn't going to go. He didn't want to kill his father. He'll have Yishmael kill his father. Anyway, I can go on and on.
So where are we now? More coming?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. From the Rebbe's point of view, we're the end of the Zohar already. There was a little battling. The war.
Fired some shots into the Syria.
You bring your thing. I'm telling you what the Rebbe has to say. The Rebbe never said. In my opinion, the Rebbe's point was that if Israel stands strong and never compromises, Yishmael will come to its own awakening just like the Christians did.
Israel did compromise, so.
What?
Israel did compromise.
Yeah, the Oslo, the whole Oslo.
But the Rebbe never gave up on them. It did, but it doesn't have to continue to.
The suicide busters, the Oslo, the whole thing was after.
You're asking questions, and I'm telling you, the Rebbe's approach was so you made a mistake yesterday, doesn't mean you have to make a mistake tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You still have the chance to be strong. Israel still can correct itself. It will. The Rebbe said if it doesn't correct itself, God makes the Arabs fight with each other. So they'll correct it. It's Mitaf Kom Tzem Emes.
Hello?
when they said Netzach and Hod, did the Rebbe imply that Netzach is for Esav and Hod is for Yishmael? That's how it's split?
I'm almost sure, yeah.
Which is interesting because Hod is a whole different strategy. What is this? What is the Netzach is understandable a strategy being first.
Because in general, Esav is Yishmael Chama. Esav, the clip of Esav is a Netzach one, war, and the clip of Yishmael is too much Chesed, not too much Gvura. They daven all day, that type of thing. There's over religious. Yeah, so they daven. They have a lot of Hod. They have too much Hod. The clip of Hod. They're obedient, suicide bombing. They're like this type of self-sacrifice. Well, in general, it says that Esav refused the Torah because of Leisirtzach, and Yishmael because of Leisinov. So this is a section. Too much love. This is too much war, too much blood. There's different opinions on that too. The whole picture comes is very rare. Because also, why did Hashem go to Esav and Yishmael by Matan Torah? They're already off the map 1,000 years. Avram was already 7 generations later. Because they're always part of the picture. Muhammad, Yishmael, Jesus, Christianity, Esav and Yishmael. It's all one big plan.
Did you ever think
it's all worked out.
Did you ever think that
the choreography is there. The only thing missing is us to come to the table. Huh?
Did you ever think that the Ishmael and Esav being father-in-law and son-in-law, that our Rebbe and the Rebbe was some type of memorial?
I never thought of that. I never thought of it that way.
Father-in-law and the father-in-law.
Interesting. I never thought of it. It's interesting. Yeah, no, I never thought of that. And it's also not comfortable to put them in one breath, No. No, of course, I understand what you're saying. I never thought of it. It's very good. That's absolutely. You could say that. You could say that. I've written. If any of you want to read this stuff, I've written a lot of it.
And Yishmael is the son-in-law.
Right? Yishmael is the father-in-law. Yeah. Yeah. It's the individual articles. I have a book outline for this whole thing, and now maybe I have to just start pushing it. Huh?
This is a really big book.
I know.
Timely book. You can't get somebody to publish this.
Gold publishing.
You send me an email, I'll send you all the links. It's on my website. You just search Yishmael, Esav, you'll find it. MeaningfulLife.com. MeaningfulLife.com.
What's the one from Toronto?
One used to speak down here.
Not wine. There's a guy. Weinstein.
Everyone is invited for the L'chaim tonight. My son became a chassan.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
Yeah.
Your son?
Where's the L'chaim?
For whom?
For Shochat from Toronto, Yossi Shochat,
Yeah.
you know him?
Yeah.
Son from David Shochat.
Yeah.
Where's the
The Chaim is in Visrike, Ritten Crown. Tonight.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, Simon Tov, Mazel tov.
Second.
I just,
Could be a kid that's
what did I just,
All right.
Would you have it down on 54th Street in the Hilton?
Somewhere in the back.
By the way, the
okay, so you know what, stop and start.
stop.
Oh, it'll be two separate